California voters voted 56 to 43% for a new law that will reduce common drug and theft crimes from felonies to misdemeanors.
A person carrying methamphetamine in their pocket down North Chester yesterday would have been arrested on a felony and could have been sentenced to prison. Today, no.
Under Prop 47, there will be little to no jail time for anyone found possessing drugs such as methamphetamine or cocaine. And any shoplifting, forgery, or fraud under $950 is now considered a misdemeanor.
We can't arrest someone for a misdemeanor crime that doesn't occur in our presence.
The new measure would also allow thousands of state prisoners to petition for a new sentence.
We can't arrest someone for a misdemeanor crime that doesn't occur in our presence. So this is going to be very awkward for the public to accept.
Now, when it comes to shoplifting, most shoplifting events don't occur within the officer's presence. They have to be called to the scene. So if it's a misdemeanor, officers can't effectuate that arrest. Now, because there were no consequences for shoplifting as long as you kept it under $950, that left people to start shoplifting with impunity.
Surveillance video shows a flash mob of thieves about to strike an Apple store at a mall in Fresno, California. It took only seconds for 4 young men in hoodies to make off with $27,000 in iPhones and laptops. These frightened girls huddled together as the thieves bolted past, knocking down a Good Samaritan who tried to block the exit. Other Apple stores are also finding themselves prime targets. This Apple store in San Francisco has been hit twice.
Yeah, it's been happening over and over, Julie. Thieves thinking they can steal things with impunity, thinking they will never get caught. It's happened again. 4 women run off after stealing from the CVS pharmacy at Van Ness and Jackson in San Francisco, this time just before 6 Monday night.
It didn't take long. Within the first hour of being at Walgreens on Geary Boulevard and 17th Avenue in San Francisco, we witnessed multiple shoplifters. One of them even took the time to explain why he simply didn't pay. Off camera, a Walgreens employee told me they're hit anywhere between 15 to 20 times a day.
Take a look at property crime in the Golden State. Reisig notes we were below the national average until 2014. That's when Prop 47 significantly decreased the penalties for drug possession and thefts under $950.
In 2014, after Proposition 47 was passed, you actually had an increase in reported property crime.
Now, because shoplifting became a problem, this led to a whole bunch of stores leaving California.
Surging crime being blamed for the closure of an enormous 65,000 square foot grocery store in San Francisco. Whole Foods is temporarily closing its downtown flagship store.
Walgreens is closing 5 more stores in San Francisco, citing ongoing retail crime.
Denny's in Oakland served its last meal today. After 54 years, the restaurant shut down for good, citing concerns over crime.
Now, we would all think this horrible law would have been enough, but this is California, and they had to go farther. So first, they hired all these progressive prosecutors to go into DA's offices and mayor's offices and not prosecute crime.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. Boudin didn't waste any time stirring things up. His vision is simple: lock up fewer people. It's the same progressive platform that swept a wave of other rookie DAs into office across the country, including Marilyn Mosby in Baltimore in 2015 and Larry Krasner in Philadelphia 3 years later.
Then all these cities started defunding their police departments, thinking that, hey, we don't need police because the police departments were racist.
Defund the police. What does that mean? The Los Angeles City Council approved a $150 million cut to the Los Angeles Police Department's budget on July 1st. Those funds will instead go towards services like mental health and housing. The proposal to defund the police was brought by the People's Budget LA, which is a coalition led by the Black Lives Matter Los Angeles chapter. Their proposal in June called for a 90% LAPD budget cut.
In Oakland, I just lost myself when I heard 90%. 90% is unfathomable. At that point, you might as well just permanently shut the entire police department down, eradicate them, make sure they do not exist. You do not have a police department at all for the city of LA, for the city of those angles, though, because if we did it in a way where it made sense, to where like you could do 12-hour shifts per cop, if you really forced them to stretch with their budget. You had 2 different police officers who did patrols, And you have just enough to basically cover probably maybe 5% of the entirety of the neighborhood / districts in LA. That's how massive and sprawled LA City proper is. They have this weird little isthmus corridor thing along a single, it's either a freeway or a main thoroughfare, north-south, connecting it down to its fucking port of LA, which is technically more port of Long Beach, just the western half of it. And random other little scraggler units and pieces like LAX, Laxative Central, over there to the west. They have all these little like extracurricular activities going on. But basically the point is they have a little sliver that connects them up into the San Fernando Valley, and then they have all the fucking like Simi and San Fernando Valley too. It's fucking stupid. It's such an immense place. And then you think about not just how much area they have to cover, but also the amount of population, the amount of tourism, thus visitors at the same time you have to deal with, the amount of fucking floors you have to cover in a lot of places in LA, because you have so many fucking high rises in the heart of it. And then you even have other mid rises and low high rises, like, you know, all throughout the surrounding area. It's ridiculous. How do you expect 10% of the current budget for that massive and bloated of a fucking sprawling mess and horror show of a cityscape, arguably the worst laid out city boundaries in the entire country, with that much population? How in the flying fuck do you possibly expect the LAPD to be able to literally function basically at all? Which is obviously the point of defunding the police. They would prefer it if the police departments didn't even exist. They might try to claim otherwise, but no, they don't want them to exist. And in fact, this would give them more reason to reason that, oh yeah, police are a fucking joke. But I just wanted to point that out, the prior part before that, and then I figured I'd throw that in there too, because it's just basic psychology. It needs to be understood and grasped so that you understand the people who do think that far. That's guaranteed another reason why they want to say get rid of 90% of an entire budget of a major police force, one of the biggest in the nation, not necessarily just by cost in terms of like how much funding they get, but also just how massive and vast their jurisdiction is, how far they have to travel, how many millions upon millions, if not tens of millions of people, in this case, millions and millions and millions. I think it's like 6 million people, 6 to 9 million people. They have to fucking, in their jurisdiction, they have to fucking care for. That's just the people who live there. That doesn't include the millions upon millions, and actually tens of millions of tourists they get per year. Like that's that many more people they have to protect and serve. Like it's absolutely fucking insane and ridiculous.
Now we're about 90 minutes ago, the city council voted to slash more than $17 million from the police budget. That money will be redirected into social services over the next 2 years.
So this led to an unforeseen consequence, like crime exploding.
Data is concerning. Nationwide, violent crime decreased in 2022, but here in California, violent crime increased for the second year in a row. Take a look at this data. After a plateau during COVID, violent crime here spiked, even though it dropped across the nation.
Prop 36 would roll back changes to criminal laws in California that were made by voters a decade ago. In the year 2014, California voters passed Prop 47, downgrading a bunch of drug and theft crimes from felonies to misdemeanors. Prop 36 would reverse many of those changes. Right now, California laws make it a misdemeanor to steal property worth $950 or less. Under Prop 36, that crime would become a felony if the offender had 2 prior theft convictions.
So opponents to Prop 36 promptly came out and called this bill racist, if this was a racist attempt to harm black and brown people.
36! No 36! Want to reverse us back to those days where they could lock up as many black and brown people as possible.
This is the main part I wanted to point out, because this is the shit that's been bugging me since it fucking really took off and started, especially around like, well, yeah, 2016-ish. The irony, the sheer intense irony of all of these fucking anti-racist people, especially black people, ironically, that are always talking about literally what that older guy said. is so that they can lock up as many black and brown people as possible, which is literally both direct and indirect admission that you are actually saying that you really believe and feel that it is almost entirely race-based, so black people and Hispanics, that are doing shoplifting and that are thieving, that are stealing from people, that are committing theft. Because shoplifting is theft. How fucking incredibly racist and prejudiced is that of a statement? It's fucking insane how they either do not see it, they genuinely do not see how they're being even more racist than the people they claim are being intensely racist by supporting these repeals, by not supporting Black Lives Matter or whatever else, by calling their bullshit out. They are being even more incredibly racist. It's always the DEI loving motherfuckers who are the most intensely prejudiced and racist people out there and sexist. It's fucking insane. And it doesn't matter if you took a mirror and smashed it over their face, they'd still scream, no, it's not true. You're lying about me. This isn't true. This is not what I said. It's literally what you're saying. You're literally arguing in the favor of the belief that some people hold that it's almost entirely black people and Hispanics that do almost all the thefts in this country. You're literally saying that by making the argument that this repeal to criminalize and make back into felonies and actually arrestable offenses, shoplifting thefts and hard drug possession. You're literally, that's what that argument does, is it argues in favor of those who believe that it is really just black people and maybe Hispanics who commit thefts and who do hard drugs and who try to sell people and get people addicted to hard drugs. They're dealers. That's literally what that does. Because if you took somebody who looks like a fucking skinhead just by birthright, apparently, like myself, and I was up there on that podium and I said the same shit he did, every single one of those people, including that same man, would tell me that I was being incredibly racist and I was a white supremacist and I was a Nazi and all these other things. They would absolutely do that because they know, they're not dumb enough to not know what they're really saying, what they're really arguing, what it really does, which is that it says, yeah, we are the ones who thieve. We are the ones who steal. We are the ones who sell, deal, and do the drugs, the hardest drugs, like meth and cocaine and fucking... And the irony is that blow is literally the fucking most cliche drug, hard drug, street drug, that black people do, that are known for. Second most is heroin. It's been decades, longer than I've been alive, like at least good 50 years, if not longer. It's been a trope in Hollywood as a joke, including among other black actors like Dave Chappelle, especially the crack cocaine or just the cocaine in general, the blow. It's ridiculous that they emphasize cocaine. You're arguing in favor of that cliche, of that prejudiced cliche, of the intense belief that it's only really non-whites who do thefts and do hard drugs. It's just the most insane thing to me that they, again, are either too stupid and unwilling to see reality to know that that's what they're actually saying and what they're favoring by that argument, or that they are, and this is more likely, that they're just that willfully blind to reality, that they know it deep down inside, because they're not that fucking dumb, they're not that stupid, they know, but they want to be willfully blind like the average American always does, because it's too uncomfortable of a fact and a reality to admit to yourself, let alone to anybody else. And so you actively avoid it and deny, no matter what, and get livid about it and get so incredibly hyper defensive and angry at anybody who suggests otherwise, because it makes you too intensely uncomfortable, because you'd have to admit something you hate to yourself is factually correct and true and reality. And that's really what it probably is that they're just pulling wool over their eyes, intentionally being blind to reality, because they don't want to acknowledge what they already know. There's nothing more racist than an anti-racist. There's nothing more racist and sexist and prejudiced than a DEI loving, supporting person. I'm sorry, there just isn't. Actually, I'm not sorry for that, because I'm just stating a fact. Like, it's wild, the mental gymnastics they go through. It's actually basically the same as any religious group. Like the Jehovah's Witnesses, obviously, on this channel, you guys are going to be most familiar with that. the latest video, in fact, from the whole 2024 annual meeting of theirs, that is 100% a great example, because if you look at it through a lot of the comments, people are talking about how they do a lot of mental gymnastics or related things. Exactly. Cognitive dissonance, same shit. That's exactly what the average American does to almost anything that they do not want to admit. And that's what these people in the DEI world and the anti-racist world do all the time. 24/7, 365. Cognitive dissonance and intensive, aggressive insistence on pulling the wool over their eyes and being willfully blind to reality. There's nothing more racist than an anti-racist.
36 gotten a whole lot of attention. This is the issue over whether to reform Prop 47 and make changes when it comes to crime. That's winning big. We can now call that Prop 36 is going to pass.
Theft is theft, no matter what way you color it, no matter what way you put it. That's a fact. I will admit that obviously, and I feel like this is very important to admit, obviously, and point out, I'm not like so 100% gung-ho. I'm like, yeah, be as harsh as you can on these people who are shoplifting and shit. Obviously, people are going to get desperate. Thankfully, I'm not stupid enough to do shit like that. I've never really had an income in my life, even to this day, and I'm almost 31. So I could have easily, in my background, could have easily had me had a criminal history. I don't. I could have easily had, shoplifting as a thing I could do, or drug dealing, or something, sex working or something like that. All the typical desperate person things to be able to just keep a roof over your head. I could be doing that, and I never will. I'd rather just be homeless and rot away for the rest of my life than I would do any of that shit. Obviously, a lot of people wouldn't agree and would not ever mimic that. Most people, as you can see, don't. They will do all the stupid shit. And so, on top of admitting that, a lot of people are just, now more than ever, we're probably as close to the Depression era when it comes down to desperate people economically as we can get. So obviously, naturally, that's a thing. And obviously, being addicted to a drug, a hard drug, is one of the worst possible life experiences you can have that you would never wish on your worst enemy, especially things like meth, because there's no cure for an overdose for meth. There's no stopping that. You basically just have to be like, well, we'll give you comfort care. Okay, you're going to die. So we'll just let you die, but try to give you as much comfort as possible as you croak and die and redact yourself from the census on this hospital bed. It is brutal. Obviously, it's not something that should be taken lightly. And there is absolutely a necessity, not just to have better and infinitely more mental health services, and more types of mental health therapy and services and resources, but there needs to be, and a lot more funding, obviously, there needs to be a lot more scrutiny for the services and the groups that start and that continue to run. There needs to be a perpetual third-party disassociated oversight committee for every single, I would argue, each individual one. And you need a lot of them. There is so much mental health crisis going on in this country, let alone across the world. And so you have to consider that. And obviously that's a whole can of worms and a mess in itself because of how lethally expensive that's going to be. Because basically, at least in the United States, there's basically zero healthcare system when it comes down to mental health. Especially for people, again, who do not have insurance, aka they don't have an income, or they have very little income that they can't afford insurance, then they're fucked. Unless you have programs for homeless and or people who are low income, borderline no income, kinds of people, and obviously affordable income prospects. People that do not have enough budget, you need to have something where they're covered so that they can get the mental health care that they need. You need to do that. You need to have the scrutiny in place at all times for all of them. Same with Social Security. The amount of fucking Social Security groups in terms of what they call payship services, they are wickedly corrupt, and they have been so fucking corrupt and disgusting for so long. It's wild. And that bodes mentioning because it's the same thing with the mental health field. It is so incredibly corrupt and so incredibly twisted and sick and biased and all this other shit that even here in the Portland metro area's case here in Oregon, where you have CCC, that's Central City Concern, you have Old Town Clinic, which I think is under CCC, and you have Luchtdorf, and you have a bunch of other places. Talk to just about anybody who has to go through and use those places, and they will tell you the same shit that I am right now. That it is so wicked corrupt, and it is actually arguably more harmful to that person than it is to just go without medications, because it is that fucking bad. You can talk to their family members who have experience trying to help them with this, and even taking them to their appointments at Luchtdorf or wherever else, and it is that fucking bad. Though they will say the same shit. It is fucking terrible. Withholding mental health pills, letting people go through crises without their fucking meds, that's a commonality. It's one of the most common traits of these organizations. And does the state care? No. Do the feds care? No. Does the Oregon Health Authority care? They don't give a fuck. Nobody gives a shit. The county doesn't give a fuck. The city doesn't give a fuck. Nobody gives a fuck. They will not touch it. It's been this way for over a decade, if not longer. It goes on and on and on. There is also a wild amount of limitations to the amount of mental health physicians there even are available state to state in this country, and let alone city to city, and also organization to organization. There's such an incredible shortage of mental health physicians and therapists. There just is. It's wild how much of a shortage there is. There's even more of an intense shortage of facilities and resources for those that are mentally ill and struggle. Same with homeless services, obviously. And the same with addiction services. In fact, addiction services are the worst. Addiction services basically, and resources basically don't exist at all in this country, the United States of America. They basically don't exist. They never really have, and I have a feeling they probably never will, which is the worst case scenario, because there is a stupid amount of addicts. And the more people that become homeless, the more likely they are to become addicts. Because yes, it's almost a borderline necessity to protect yourself and what little you have left in your ownership on your person from being stolen by somebody if you try to even get a wink of sleep. So naturally people turn to methamphetamine. Meth is by far the most common drug used in the homeless world in this country, because that's how wickedly untrustworthy these other homeless people are to the other homeless people. They will steal from each other any opportunity that they get. If they find you sleeping, they will probably be stealing from you. Obviously, not all the homeless people here, or anywhere else in the country for that matter, are all these evil assholes who won't protect each other, let alone themselves and their things, their animals, if they're lucky to have a companion animal. Like, there is obviously always going to be groups of very good people with good integrity who, no matter how hard it gets for them on the streets, they will always stick together. They will always protect each other. They will always keep their areas clean, themselves as clean as possible. They will always help each other in every way they can, and they will always protect each other. They always watch over each other and each other's things. This is just the reality of life, because guess what? Everyone's a unique individual. Naturally, you can't broadly cast entire groups of people into groups. So barrels, you can't just throw people into fucking entire categories. You cannot categorize people, no matter how hard and bad you want to and try, which is human nature. You can't. Stop trying to categorize people. Stop trying to put them under fucking labels. It doesn't fucking work. We are individual, unique living beings. Leave it alone. Teach your fucking brain to stop obsessively trying to apply labels, to stop obsessively trying to put people in barrels, to stop obsessively trying to apply group labels to people. Stop it. Even to yourself, stop it. It's not healthy, it's not good, it's not smart, it's not rational, it's not logical. Knock it off. That's not how life itself works. It's the antithesis of it, actually. So stop trying to do that. So yeah, it's a no shit Sherlock thing to me. It always has been, which is why I usually don't mention things that people then, like, in a comment will be like, well, obviously not all of them, or like whatever else. And it's like, dude, I didn't say that because it's fucking obvious. So obvious, you fucking said it in anger. Who would have thought? Interesting. It's almost like that's why I didn't say it. So yes, obviously, because of that, there's going to be good people no matter what at all times that'll protect each other. But they always try to make sure that they are separate and away from the rest of the homeless world, because a lot of them are addicts. A lot of them are erratic, a lot of them are mentally ill, and a lot of them are dirty and or again not trustworthy. So naturally, since they're homeless too, they can point you to those groups. They can point you to those camps. They can tell you exactly who it is that is like that and who belongs to that grouping of homeless people. And unfortunately, yes, it is the majority of people, at least in the Portland metro area, it is the majority of homeless people are mentally ill and homeless and or addicts or homeless or a combination of all three, which is especially great because then they're even more unpredictable and risky to be around. And it's unfortunate. And again, without the addiction care and treatment facilities and physicians and people, let alone the mental health facility capacity and resources and programs and physicians, which there's a shortage of all of them, but again, especially the addiction treatment is by far the worst one off. There is basically none existent in this country, let alone the Portland area. In fact, I don't think there is any addiction treatment facilities or special places or programs or resources or anything anywhere in the state of Oregon, actually. Unless you're, again, paying out of pocket and you're a fucking celebrity, then you can go to fucking Newburgh, like Robin Williams and all these other big celebrities have. Because it's all privatized and for profit. It's fucking stupid. But, like, you're fucked. So yes, obviously that's a problem. And I mention that because, again, as we heard, there's always that throw in of like, oh, well, yeah, it's not just the thefts. It's also because it's recriminalizing and making it a felony again to be in possession of a certain amount of like methamphetamine and cocaine. They specifically said those two is to take the budget from the police and put it into housing. So addressing homelessness and addiction treatment, potentially addressing homelessness and, well, actually not addiction treatment in mental health services, which addiction and mental health services are in fact very different specialties. They're very different things. So keep that aspect in mind. So they should have said addiction treatment if that was a thing. And I think at one point they did. But the point is that look at each of these counties, these states, these cities, the entire state of California. Has any of that actually happened? No, it hasn't. And for what has it helped? No, it hasn't. Nothing's changed. In fact, the only changes that have happened is it's gotten worse. Which is another point I have to make. Because it's politics, and sociopolitics at that, it's never going to be made to actually serve us. It's never going to be made to actually work for any of us. It's not supposed to work. It's not supposed to help us. We're the little people. We don't matter. It's the politicians that matter. Like, they think that they're going to protect themselves and their positions in power as puppets to the big business benefactors, the business daddies that bought them into office in the first place. Because your vote did not get them there. They were bought there. They're only going to care for themselves in the big club that we ain't in. And that's the richest of the rich who run the world. And every single nation in it. It's not for us, it's for them. And they are never going to fucking actually make sure anything like that could actually help us. They're never going to implement that shit, ever. That's a fact. But it bears noting because, again, it didn't work. It's still gotten worse. None of that's really helped anyone. Where did that money go? Interesting how it didn't work for that either. And then they get mad about it being defunded there and maybe reshuffled back to policing. This is human nature in a nutshell, especially when it comes down to governance and politics. It's a pendulum. It swings aggressively back and forth. It never stops anywhere except the two extremes. It's going to go to one extreme, then the other extreme, and everything in between gets ignored and skipped. That's human nature. They will only ever be extremists. They will never, ever do anything but support the extreme and go and repeat the same extremes over and over and over again as they swing back and forth. One way, other way, one way, other way, right, left, up, down, up, down. They will never stop repeating the same cycle. There is no middle ground in human nature. And that's the worst part of it. And history, throughout human history, especially with governance, modern governance, proves that point. It is literally human nature. And so that's why both the extreme harshness in terms of criminal behavior and acts and addictions and shit, throwing addicts into prison is like the worst thing you can do. It doesn't help anybody. It doesn't fix anything. It can actually make it worse. It can literally kill them, actually. Some are such physical addictions that it will literally kill you when you go through the withdrawal and you go through the drug tank, let's call it, instead of the drunk tank. It's ridiculous that this is the world we have to live in. It's really incredibly frustrating. But it's the truth. It's bad to put them in there too, but what the fuck else are you supposed to fucking do at this point? And yeah, for thefts, it's bad. Getting back to my point, which now that I think about it, that was like 20 minutes ago probably at this point. I meant to keep that succinct and short. But with the theft thing, one of the other aspects of it, besides the addict part and the mental illness part, the desperate financial nature of it part, which I do get. It's not an excuse. It's not a defense. It's indefensible to thieve, but I do get it. But the other aspect of it is the fact that I understand and I am apathetic. I do not actually care at all, really. Let's face it, I really don't care at all. I don't like it, it's not comfortable with it, but at the same time, I get it, and I don't really care because it doesn't fucking hurt that corporation at all, is when it's a really big corporation. Then, fuck it. Go into free-for-all. Steal $27,000 of a fucking Apple corporate portfolio. That's not even a dent. That's not even a single penny drop in their fucking income and their bottom line. You're not impacting them negatively at all. And they don't give a fuck about their employees. They don't give a fuck about their consumers, the people who buy their products. They don't give a fuck about anybody. They never have. They never will. All they care about is profitability and maximizing it. That's all they give a fuck about. So why the fuck should I care if their storefront gets busted up and a bunch of people steal half of their fucking supply? I really don't give a fuck. That's something I wouldn't even try to prevent, or I wouldn't call in, because though I'm uncomfortable with it, I don't like it. It's shit behavior. It's really sad and bad that people decide to go do this. And most of the people that do this now actually aren't even doing it out of desperation. They really aren't. They're doing it so they can resell it, not out of desperation, just because, like a side hustle type of thing, or turning it into an actual, like, almost black market side of business, which is their choice. Go for it, I guess. But it's still just, like, sickening to me in a way. But though I don't support the behavior and the action taken, I understand it. And I could give two fucks about those corporations taking a hit like that, because it's not going to fucking affect them in the end anyway. So who the fuck gives a shit? If you're stealing from a small business, a mom and pop, a local, say, I don't know, 10 shop minor, 30 shop minor, yeah, you can go fuck yourself. You really deserve to be reamed over the coals for that. The smaller it is, the worse it is, and the more wrong and inexcusable it is to do that, to where I would have zero support for it. And I really do think it should be a full-on felony. I really do think you should treat it as harshly as possible. That is how I personally see it, and I feel about it. Obviously, a lot of people will not agree with that, but that's just how I feel personally about it. I wanted to point that out, that I get it. Both ends of the spectrum, I totally get that. I do think it can go without, like I said, being touched or being criminalized for people robbing an Apple store. The only time I would ever be in full support of stealing is if shit hits the fan. So literally nothing can be managed. Nothing can really be defended or protected. Everything in the world's gone to shit. It's literally a free-for-all for survival. Looting's great. Looting is fully supportable. You're not going to still sit there and be like, well, you know, the government collapsed, but I'm still going to obey the laws that no longer exist and die, because I'm not going to go loot or take anything that might have been owned by somebody else when there was a government and laws in place. I'd rather die. Like, no, obviously not, but I'm the aggressor. I wish people would stop being stupid and they'd actually genuinely be supportive of each other and actually be nice to each other, rather than always seeing each other as different groups and different labels, and I'm different than you, but as a bad thing, as an antagonistic thing. I really wish humanity would stop obsessing over this stupid label and PC politics shit. It's the dumbest thing. Get group and category and fucking DEI and race-based and all this stupid shit. Like, we should be so fucking far past that shit, and everybody's still fucking obsessing over it. It's like literally the most important things to them is who did you vote for? What's your political alignment? What are your political beliefs? What are your socio-political beliefs? What are your social stances? Your policies that you like or don't like, your politicians you like or don't like, who's your favorite celebrity, what's your favorite movies, all this stupid, useless pop culture shit. And then, of course, all this other bullshit, like this, like, you know, like, how do you feel about Black Lives Matter? How do you feel about Antifa? How do you feel about Proud Boys and Patriot Bear? How do you feel about... Fuck off. It should literally not fucking matter if you have a sympathy to fucking Pol Pot. I really don't think it should. Like, yeah, you don't have to support Pol Pot, and you're not supporting that, or somebody's likeness or relationship or liking of an evil person like Pol Pot. And this is just as an example, right? You don't have to support that to be able to support that person or their freedom and right to be able to like and support that person. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to like it. You can be as polar opposite as that as possible and still treat each other with an ultimate amount of respect, appreciation, kindness, friendship, support, help, everything. Like, I don't care how fucking opposite we might be. If you're in need, I'd rather support you and help you and try to be understanding and be as kind and respectful as possible, rather than being all uppity and upset and being like, well, you know, you voted for Donald Trump and I don't support that, so I'm going to let you die and bleed out now. If you'll excuse me, I'm going to go abduct a child. I don't fucking know. What? I'm going to go burn a fucking building, a random business in downtown Portland. I don't fucking know. Like, what? Or vice versa, right? Like, if you're not a Christian nationalist, well, then, and you're an atheist, then I'm going to let you get torn to pieces by that rabid dog, because I'm not going to help you now, because you don't believe the same as I do, and God's the most important thing, so you actually deserve to die. You're going to die in Armageddon anyway. You're going to be in purgatory anyway. You're going to be in hell anyway. Whatever, right? Like, you could literally pick any group of people, ironically, right? And apply the same logic to it. Because that's how people work these days. They see it as animosity. They see it as a horrible thing to be different. Your differences are not bad. They are massive positives. The more differences every one of us have and we recognize in each other, the better. The more it proves we are unique individual living beings, right? So it's a positive, not a negative. Stop being so irrationally fucking upset or uppity about or offended by people not voting the way you would, or not thinking the way you would, or parenting the way you would, or believing the things that you do, or thinking the way that you do, or whatever. It's the dumbest, least logical shit in the world. Like, everybody wants an echo chamber nowadays, and the more they deny it, the more they actually prove they do, because the more uppity those people tend to be and more reactive they are intensively towards those who do not agree with them. It's ironic, but like, everybody's a massive contradictory hypocrite these days. Yes, that is redundant. I don't care. Anyway, I'm digressing even further now, so I'm going to shut the fuck up. Celebrate each other's differences. Stop being offended by them. It's one of the least logical dumb things. Just respect and appreciate each other, care for each other, no matter what. For real, man. This is so stupid. But anyway, and yeah. Stop obsessing over stupid, pointless shit that we should be past, like fucking melanin counts in your fucking skin, and what you look like in your stupid, like, ethnic background, or whatever else, or what you identify as. Identity politics. Also, just as bad as everything else I've mentioned that I've said is bad. It's some of the most toxic, worst, divisive, polarizing bullshit, least logical bullshit in the world. It is literally a tool by those in power to divide and conquer. That is what it's for. It is not actually for what they say on the surface, that it's all for equality and equanimity, unity. No, it's not. Balance. It's not. It's to divide and conquer. And it couldn't be more obvious. I digress.